Hello, Dr. Lim. My name is Maxim, and I was working with Chris on implementation of Google Books API in Swift. And let's start. For a better understanding of the idea of our project, it's necessary to talk about books in general first. A mind needs books like sword needs a whetstone. This is a phrase of Tyrion Lannister from a very famous show Game of Thrones. And I agree with this statement because writing was the best way of collecting, storing, and sharing information for a few millenniums. Around 2500 years ago, in ancient Egypt, people were writing on the stones to record information. It was very expensive, inaccessible, and time-consuming, which meant that the amount of writing wasn't really high, and there was no need to keep track of it. Around the same time, people in China came up with the paper technology, the technology that over a period of time wiped out even the idea of usage of other materials. It solved the problem of accessibility in a way because the production of paper wasn't so expensive. However, the next problem was that the handwriting. The handwriting itself takes a lot of effort and time. In medieval Europe, most part of churches had hundreds of monks working on day and night to make copies of Bible. And they were beautiful and handmade, which meant they were pretty expensive. Only rich people were able to buy them. The next technology which changed everything was the printing press. In the beginning, it still was a long process, but even in this case, it was more efficient than handwriting itself, because after you finished your work, you own multiple copies of books, so you can sell them around and use the whatever way you want, which decreased the price and meant that a lot of people stopped rewriting the books and were finally able to create their own books, which and it's made them just a lot more accessible. By the mid and by the middle of the 20th century, there was so many books around that there was finally a need to categorize them. That's exactly why people came up with ISBN, ISBN, sorry, or International Standard Book Number. Let's just talk about history of it a little bit, right? In 1965, it was created by Gordon Foster. Um, in 1967, it was accepted in the United Kingdom. In 1968, it was accepted in the United States of America. In 1970s, it was accepted by International Organization for Standardization and it's got the number of ISO 2108. In 2007, format was extended to from 10 numbers to 13 numbers. To give you a better example, it was very similar to process of switching from IPv4 to IPv6 because at some point they were just getting close to being out of numbers, right? Okay, so let's just talk about number a little bit more. Like, what exactly is the number? I'm not going to discuss like the old 10 number one, but I'll talk a little bit closer about the 113 number one because it's just important to be able to know what we're getting out of it, right? The first three numbers, EAN, are the ID of the format itself. So if it starts with 978, it means it's the ISBN format. The second number was group, and those two numbers identifies the code of the country. The next four numbers, the publisher, uh, identify the publisher. Pretty simple, right? The next three numbers are the title and the format, and the last one was most often used for version. So sometimes one book can have like up to 10 versions or even more, but after that they usually just change the name a little bit or rewrite it in a way. And that's exact. And on the right, you can see how they look like in real life. I bet everyone who ever read a book saw those, right? And now let's talk a little bit about approaches. So we got a technique, we got this awesome tool, and there's two very different approaches to this thing. And let's figure out which one would you prefer, because we prefer Google. Okay, let's talk about Amazon first. Amazon has its own ASIN, which e-commerce giant uses as unique identifier for every product in its catalog. Amazon also uses ISBN as ISIN, so it's actually kind of confusing sometimes because you can just have like the same number or different numbers, and you don't know exactly when ISBN is equal to ASIN. So it's kind of weird. And also the result of work is the XML file, which wasn't really the thing which we were looking for, so we decided not to go with Amazon. And why we chose Google? Google uses the OAuth2 protocol, which is the industry standard protocol for authorization, which means that we won't really need a lot of software to make it work, which is nice. Simplicity is perfection. It's very nice and it's easy to use in JavaScript, which was very helpful during the first phase of our project. I honestly never learned Swift, so for me it was and for me it's important to be able to like figure out what's going on in the project to be able to work with it, right? So at the beginning, I decided to go with JavaScript. Yeah, I know it sounded a little bit complicated after all this theoretical part, right? So let's see how it looks a little bit deeper inside, more not theoretical but practical. Um, we connected to the, like at the beginning we connect to the Google API up here, right? And then if we know ISBN of the book, we would be able to get any book information about the exact book, which is nice. And the format we declared up here in HTML part of the file. And let's just take a look how it looks like, right? And that's the result which I got. Just any random book, it doesn't really matter. Uh, yeah, so we just got the book and we can find some information about it or some like publisher information or who is the author. But knowing ISBN is not really a thing nowadays, right? It's not like we're walking around and using numbers. We usually call book by name, right? I mean, maybe in someday, but not yet. So we decided to combine them and change it a little bit different and make it a little bit different. So the co-founder of MT, Tom Preston, said, innovation is taking two things that exist and putting them together in a new way. So after figuring out how the API itself works, I started to work on the implementation of it in Swift. So combining two things to create a new thing, right? Innovation. Our project team was working on the project separately because of the coronavirus going on. So we used GitHub for the compilation and version control. And that's how the prototype of the API itself looked like before the implementation in the main project. So we got a table view up here, right, and kind of like a book description up here. Pretty simple, right? Let's talk a little bit deeper about code, right? To be able to work with Google API, we use the query items. It's an array of URL query items. We're using the URL query items initializer to pass the name and value of query parameter. By assigning query items array, URL components will internally add the percent encoding of the query parameter. So that sounds pretty neat, right? And let's see like how our variables looks like, right? I mean, in search part of, oh, in Google API part. So here's the list of parameters that we were using in the API section. Struct book was mainly used to show the list of results that are similar to the one which the user typed. So after you typing the name of the book, you will see the like you will see the similar titles, you will see the author, and each book have ID. Then the next struct is book details. It was used after the moment when the user chose one of the books, so he pressed on the book, and now he sees the book details. Uh, Also, the app itself checks the format of the information in case if something happened during the process of receiving data. So right up here, if the URL was invalid or key or array or something else went wrong, so it will just get an error. And I'm done with my part of the presentation and I'm passing it to Chris.